Hello. The following video demonstrates what happens if you anger the god or goddess of you. Hello, welcome to this week's video. My previous video, colouring a yew bowl, was very well received. But I now am faced with a dreadful moment of hubris. Not only did I try to colour a piece of yew in this video, I also textured it. The deity of yew was not pleased. So please let this video be a warning to all of you out there who think that any bit of wood can be textured and coloured. It will come back and bite you on the, well, you know where. Think of this as a public confession of guilt, a public shaming for someone who should have known better. Right, so here's my bit of yew. I had turned it between centres to a cylinder and then put it in the chuck. There was a little bit of wobble, so I've kept the tail centre up and just trued that up, just facing off that end, and then getting a depth mark there to shape the bottom. 1/2 inch spindle gouge, a little on the blunt side. I could have just left it as a cylinder to try out the effect, but I was intending to make a finished piece. The yew had ideas of its own, which we'll get to. So I spent a bit of time putting some shape on, making sure that there was a nice gentle curve on the edge there, nice little cove at the bottom, and make a little foot as well. And then it was a case of getting on to playing with my Proxxon to put some texture on. Now I'm using one of the Merlin 2 carbide rasps. They have various grades of cut: fine, medium, coarse. This is the fine grade. It's the lightest of those rasps. The coarse one in particular feels a little heavy in the Proxxon, although the Proxxon I think has got the same motor size as a Merlin 2, but it's not as expensive as a Merlin 2. So the texture is being put on with that green carbide blade. You can see I've angled the texture. It always makes it seem a little bit more dynamic looking than if I had done it parallel with the grain or perpendicular to the grain. And the idea with this is to make sure that the whole surface gets cut. Now, rather than just starting at one part of the outside and then working my way around evenly in sequence, I kept moving a bit of wood round and starting in different areas, so I didn't get too much into a rut of making the same angle cut or the same size of cut, to try and give a much more random, uneven look to it, but keeping that same general angle of cut. And then towards the end of the texturing, a close inspection of the surface to make sure that there aren't any bits that haven't been cut. They really will stand out once the colour is on. I know, colouring yew, texturing yew. Oh well, not long till my moment of hubris. But before that comes nylon bristle brushes that are drill mounted, just to do a little bit of cleaning up if there are any wisps. The reason I'm using yew is that it cuts very nicely, almost like a creamy consistency. And I thought this approach might work well with the yew, because normally when I colour a piece of wood, where I put the colour, I make the colour solid. Even if the grain is going to come through, even if it's with stains, I often, well, almost always, I think, where the colour goes, the colour covers all of the wood, even if there's bare wood on another part of the rim, and certainly bare wood in the middle of a platter or a bowl. But on this one, I wanted the wood to come through. I was hoping it would make a nice contrast. So here we go with some acrylic paint. I'm going to brush across the texture rather than with it, so that I just catch the high points. And I think that's looking very nice and effective there. So this is Joe Sonja paint. This is aqua. If you want to, if you want to recreate this experiment at home, I don't recommend it. But I thought using yew, when I've got the paint on, I would oil it and it would bring the lovely warmth of the yew out against the colour. But you know me, I'm not one to just stop at one colour when I've got boxes and boxes of paints. So I thought I'll have another colour over the top. And I think this would have worked well, brown, burnt sienna I believe is the name of it, if I had wiped a lot more of it off the brush. There you go. Too thick. I'll leave you to decide what it looks like, but I think it looks messy. Towards the end though, you can see where the paint has got a lot thinner and coming on in not such thick blobs. I think it actually looks quite effective. But having already ruined the lovely blue, I thought I'm not going to waste this opportunity. Let's try another colour. So I went with some yellow. And the yellow's being put on with a very fine brush. And again, probably didn't wipe quite enough off, but I like the three colours together actually. But the blue has lost a bit too much for me. So after the yellow, as it mixed with the brown, it got a little less vibrant. And so to correct that, here's a little bit more blue. Yeah, I probably went a bit heavy-handed with the blue again. But none of that matters. This was me just trying out an idea, seeing if it worked. And it, well, let's just say it had a certain qualified success. I really should take up politics. Now, once the colouring was finished off, I thought, well, you know, I want to make it a finished piece. I'm going to tidy it up. Down by the foot there, I just neatened that up. Little chamfer with a little 3/8 spindle gouge to just recut there and put something a bit neater at the bottom, which would have been the foot. And then with a 1/2 inch bowl gouge, which I should have sharpened. Yes, that is what I'm telling myself. There is a logical explanation for why this decided not to stay in the chuck. Nothing supernatural at all, honest. With a rather blunt spindle gouge, I was hollowing it out. Put a little chamfer again on the rim just to lead the eye in. Always like to do that rather than have a flat rim. And there is also a little split in there, which I think is what caused the bit to happen that meant the gods of yew had got it in for me. Coming up very soon. We have to stop the video here for health and safety reasons. The following scene has been deleted because I don't really think anyone needs to see a piece of wood coming out of a chuck. But doubly so in this case because it may have inadvertently captured the deity of yew on camera, which is not something that is allowed to be filmed. But suffice it to say, I shouldn't have been using a very blunt spindle gouge on a piece of wood with a little bit of a crack in it. Well, that's what my logical brain thinks, my rational brain thinks. But I think we all know in our hearts what really happened. So let's move on to believe that I had finished turning it. And then I'd oiled it. And then I'd taken some lovely still photographs of it. I really do like the look of this. Maybe I wouldn't do it again on a bit of yew, but it was a rather plain looking bit of yew. Anyway, a few still images coming up so you can see what the effect would look like had it been completed. And a salutary lesson learned. Honest. Well, there we go. One for the firewood pile. And I'll never colour yew again. Or texture yew. Maybe. Definitely.